focusing on Catholic social teaching. As you're all aware, Catholic social teaching is an integral part of our Catholic theology, and during Lent, it's a great time to come to a greater understanding of that. And today, our topic is going to be caring for God's creation. And we have two lovely ladies here, Sandy Ashley and Phyllis Dorrington, who have a passion for caring for God's creation. And they have a lot of wisdom to share for us. They're both members of the Caring for God's Creation ministry. And we are so delighted and excited to have you here this morning. So thank you.
Thank you, Dawn, and thanks for asking us. Let's begin our time together today with a prayer. I think we passed out a prayer card. It's a prayer for our earth from Laudato Si. So we begin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace. As usual, Pope Francis says a lot. So I also wanted to recognize this morning Barb Keegan, who's part of our ministry, and it takes a community, as we all know, to make things work. So thank you, Barb, and thanks for your support and for being here. So this is the first of a series of 5 presentations on Catholic social teaching. And our parish is strong on values in sacrificial love for the common good. And we have many ministries that contribute to it. Catholic social teaching has been part of Catholic life and culture and writing for literally centuries. And there are 7 themes of it that are listed in our bulletin every week. Care for God's creation is the most recent theme added, I believe. We have the life and dignity of the person, which is our sacredness, a call to family, community, and participation, which is social and civic duty, rights and responsibilities, option for the poor and vulnerable, or care for the poor, the dignity and rights of workers, solidarity, and care for creation. So I'm going to propose to you that we are last but not least. So, or the last shall be first. Maybe we should say it that way. In 2015, Pope Francis released the encyclical Laudato Si on the care for our common home. The title is from the Canticle of the Sun by Saint Francis, and it means, "Praise be to you." And the full phrase from St. Francis's Canticle of the Sun is, "Praise be to you, mi Signor," or "Praise be to you, my Lord." And I think it is very fitting that we begin with praise and gratitude, as Jesus did before he did each one of his healing miracles. We're grateful for the gift from God of our beautiful, amazing planet, which sustains our lives and which we are an integral part of. We are now confronted with and experiencing the damage to the earth, to the climate, and to the earth's many inhabitants and elements. Much of this damage is human-caused, and it is so severe that it causes loss of health, loss of life, and the extinction of entire species. And so we are called to repent, and with the love and grace of the Holy Spirit, we are called to act. Catholic Relief Services has a quote that speaks to this, and I'll close with that. We are called to protect people and the planet, living our faith in relationship with all of God's creation. This environmental challenge is fundamental moral and ethical dimensions that cannot be ignored. So I'll turn this over to Phyllis, and she'll carry on with our presentation.
All right, we'll kind of bounce back and forth. But I also want to welcome you for coming. Thank you for taking time to be with us today. As you know, Dawn asked our Care for Creation ministry to reflect on this aspect of Catholic social teaching. So St. Mary's Care for Creation ministry looks at different actions we can take as a parish, as a family, and as individuals to make us more sustainable and to lighten our impact on our magnificent planet. This ministry is rooted in the St. Francis Peace Through Justice ministry and branched out to focus specifically on Pope Francis, who decided to join us today, encyclical written in 2015. It has been a driving force in all we do. We have rooted ourselves in its spirituality and its call to care for our common home. In the ministry, we focus on educating others on a better understanding of what is happening to our world and the actions we can take to embrace the help of the planet Earth. St. Mary's Parish, in many individual ministries, and I see many of you here, through the staff and individual parishioners, have embraced the call to care for the common home. The list is long, and here are a few. The use of the solar panels, the transition of all these lights to LED lights, both in the church and in the office, the focus on recycling and reduction, the incredible Jubilee Garden that just bursts with life every spring, the energy-efficient practices, fair trade coffee, online bulletins, Zoom nights on Laudato Si, bulletin articles that focus on the care for creation, and on and on. So St. Mary's has taken huge steps to embrace the call of Pope Francis and the call of our world. When I look out, I see you all gathered here today. I see before me caring, loving people who are deeply embedded in God and in the church. People who truly care and want a better world for the coming generations. People who lead simple lives and are an inspiration to all of us around you. You inspire me each time I see you at church and see the way you care for our fellow human beings on this journey. So our hope for today is to empower you to create positive change in your life and to live with a lighter impact on our incredible world. I'll just quickly go over the setup for today. One thing is we need pencils, so maybe we could pass those out quick. But we will focus first on the powerful video message of Pope Francis, calling all people of goodwill to take care of our earth and to join him in his Laudato Si action platform. Now is the time. We will read it first, and then we will watch it, and then discuss its impact. After that, we will take a closer look at what is happening to our world, and then the action plan, and learn how to become part of it or embrace it in our daily lives. You will look at actions you can take to add on to the long list you probably already have, and then we will close with hope and prayer. And Sandy was going to share a question. I sure do, I think.
We had a question just right at this point, as we're at the beginning parts of this, which is to reflect a little bit on what prompted you to come today. There's an article in the bulletin this weekend written by Barb Keegan about a talk that Michael Downs, who grew up in Helena, gave to the parish Zoom community a week or so ago. And he closed his talk by saying, what is your why? Why are you interested? Why are you here today? Why are you taking action or studying things about the climate crisis and climate justice that we're now experiencing? So do we have a few minutes to reflect, or should we keep going forward, Phyllis?
Maybe if a few people would want to just share why.
Yes, and also I think there's journals in the gathering space that you could use for this as well. I'm getting a nod from our new priest. There you go. So yes, any of you have something you'd like to share about that? What is your why? How did you become interested? Or I can share just a little bit of my own story. I grew up in Colorado in the I didn't live there in the 50s. I was alive though. I lived there in the 60s, and lots of outdoor sports and that kind of thing, which I really enjoy, and became interested in the environmental movement, primarily through organizations like the Sierra Club. And then moving up to Montana, of course, continued that interest and began to hear more about environmental issues. That was the time that Nixon signed the Environmental Protection Act, for example. The Endangered Species Act was enacted at that time. So we were concerned about the environment and environmental degradation, never understanding this was something like climate change that would threaten our very existence. And so as time went along and more science was done after the turn of the century, that became much clearer. And it was something I felt personally very, very passionate about. And then when the Pope released the encyclical Laudato Si, my environmental passion became fused with my spirituality, which is a deeper held passion than my environmental passion, which, if you know me, is really saying something. And that fusion of really realizing that this is what we are called to as Catholic Christians, and this kind of sacrificial love, and to listen to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. So that's kind of my story, and we all have different versions of that. And I'm still growing and studying and trying new things. So I would share that for a bit.
And then for me, just like all of you, we love Montana, we love the outdoors, we love all the opportunities. But the thing that got me just so aware of the climate change and what's happening in our world is one day in the bulletin at St. Mary's about, I bet 4 or 5 years ago, the Care for Creation, then known as the Environmental Ministry, recommended the book Climate Justice. I thought, well, I should read that. That would be good. And it was written by Mary Robinson, the former president of Ireland and the U.S. Special Envoy of Climate Change. And what she did is share the stories of people from Africa and the indigenous farmers that were suffering because of what we, the wealthy nations, were doing to our atmosphere. The people up in Alaska whose lives were changing by the amount of warming up there. The people in South America who could no longer farm in their farms because of the droughts and the heavy rains. And so we see all the migrants. And so after I read that, I thought, how can I go on living the way I'm living if I'm hurting so many other people throughout the world? And now what we'd like to do is you have the Laudato Si video message, and Pope Francis has just such a beautiful lyrical voice. It's hard to watch it and then embrace all the pictures, so we thought we would read it first. And while we read it, I think Sandy and I will just bounce back and forth reading it. Maybe just highlight a word or a phrase throughout there that intrigues you or strikes you. Okay, so that's that first. So if you want to start.
This is a video message of His Holiness Pope Francis to mark the launch of the Laudato Si action platform, which is what we'll be talking about today. Dear brothers and sisters, with the encyclical Laudato Si promulgated in 2015, I invited all people of goodwill to take care of the earth, which is our common home. For a long time now, this house that hosts us suffers as a result of wounds that we cause by our predatory attitude, which makes us feel that we are masters of the planet and its resources, and authorizes us to make irresponsible use of the goods God has given us. Today, these wounds manifest themselves dramatically in an unprecedented ecological crisis, which involves the ground, air, water, and, in general, the ecosystem in which human beings live. The current pandemic has now brought to light, in an even stronger way, the cry of nature and that of the poor who suffer the consequences in which human beings live. The current pandemic has now brought to light an even stronger way the cry of nature and that of the poor who suffer the consequences the most, highlighting that everything is interconnected and interdependent, and that our health is not separate from the health of the environment in which we live.
Therefore, we need a new ecological approach that can transform our way of inhabiting the world, our lifestyles, our relationship with the Earth's resources, and in general, our way of looking at humanity and of living life. An integral human ecology, which involves not only environmental questions, but also mankind in its entirety, becomes capable of listening to the cry of the poor and of being leaven for a new society.
We have a great responsibility, especially with regard to future generations. What world do we want to leave to our children and our young people? Our selfishness, our indifference, and our irresponsible ways are threatening the future of our children. I therefore renew my appeal. Let us take care of our Mother Earth. Let us overcome the temptation of selfishness that makes us predators of resources. Let us cultivate respect for the gifts of the earth and of creation. Let us inaugurate a lifestyle and a society that is finally eco-sustainable. We have the opportunity to prepare a better tomorrow for all. From God's hands, we have received a garden that we cannot leave a desert to our children.
In this context, on the 24th of May, 2020, I proclaim the Laudato Si year, the organization of which was entrusted to the dicastery for promoting integral human development. I thank all those who have celebrated this year with many initiatives. Today, I am pleased to announce that the Laudato Si year will result in a concrete action project, the Laudato Si Action Platform, a 7-year journey that will see our communities committed in different ways to becoming totally sustainable in the spirit of integral ecology.
I would therefore invite everyone to embark on this journey together. And in particular, I address these 7 environments: families, parishes and dioceses, schools and universities, hospitals, business and farms, organizations, groups and movements, religious institutes. Work together. Only in this way will we be able to create the future we want, a more inclusive, fraternal, peaceful, and sustainable world.
On a journey that will last for 7 years, we will let ourselves be guided by the 7 aims of Laudato Si, which will show us the direction while we pursue the vision of an integral ecology. The 7 aims: the response to the cry of the earth, the response to the cry of the poor, the ecological economy, the adoption of a simple way of life, ecological education, ecological spirituality, and community engagement.
There is hope. We can all collaborate, each one with his own culture and experience, each one with her own initiatives and capacities, so that our Mother Earth may be restored to her original beauty and creation may once again shine according to God's plan.
And the Pope goes on to bless each one of you. And now what we'd just like to do, this should take maybe a minute, is hopefully you underlined or you have in mind one thing that struck you. And I would just like to quickly buzz around the room, and if you would say your word or phrase, and that's it, nothing more. And if you don't have one, just pass. So, Catherine, do you have a word?
Gift.
What was it?
Gift.
Gift. Okay. There is hope. Say it one more time.
Predatory attitude.
Okay, the predatory attitude. Given a garden and leave a desert. Okay. Anybody? Okay. Okay. Initiatives. Anyone?
Restore.
Okay.
We have great responsibility.
Okay. And great responsibility. We can't leave a desert for our children. Dawn or Sandy? Do you have?
Mine was, we can't leave our desert to our children either. That a whole lot of this really gets me, but that's a big one.
Yeah. And now we'll have Pope Francis share his message with us.
Fratelli e sorelle, con l'enciclica Laudato Si, promulgata nel 2015, invitavo tutte le persone di buona volontà a prendersi cura della terra che è la nostra casa comune. Da tempo ormai questa casa che ci ospita soffre per ferite che noi provochiamo a causa di un atteggiamento predatorio che ci fa sentire padroni del pianeta e delle sue risorse e ci autorizza a un uso irresponsabile del bene, dei beni che Dio ci ha dato. Oggi queste ferite si manifestano drammaticamente in una crisi ecologica senza precedenti che interessa il suolo, l'aria, l'acqua e in genere l'ecosistema in cui gli esseri umani vivono. L'attuale pandemia poi ha portato alla luce in modo ancora più forte il grido della natura e quello dei popoli che ne subiscono maggiormente le conseguenze, evidenziando che tutto è essere fermento per una nuova società. Abbiamo una grande responsabilità, specialmente nei confronti delle future generazioni. Che mondo vogliamo lasciare ai nostri bambini e ai nostri giovani? Il nostro egoismo, la nostra indifferenza e i nostri stili irresponsabili stanno minacciando il futuro dei nostri ragazzi. Rinnovo allora il mio appello: prendiamoci cura della nostra madre terra, vinciamo la tentazione dell'egoismo che ci rende predatori delle risorse, coltiviamo il rispetto per i doni della terra, della creazione, inauguriamo uno stile di vita e una società finalmente ecosostenibili. Abbiamo l'opportunità di preparare un domani migliore per tutti. Dalle mani di Dio abbiamo ricevuto un giardino. Ai nostri figli non possiamo lasciarlo deserto. In questo contesto, il 24 maggio 2020, ho indetto l'anno Laudato Si, la cui organizzazione è stata affidata al Dicastero per il Servizio di Sviluppo Umano Integrale. Ringrazio tutti coloro che hanno celebrato quest'anno con moltissime iniziative. Oggi sono lieto di annunciare che l'anno Laudato Si sfocerà in un progetto di azione concreto, la Laudato Si Action Platform, un cammino di 7 anni che vedrà impegnate in diversi modi le nostre comunità perché diventino totalmente sostenibili nello spirito dell'ecologia integrale. Vorrei dunque invitare tutti ad affrontare questo cammino insieme. In particolare mi rivolgo a queste 7 realtà: famiglie, parrocchie e diocesi, scuole e università, ospedali, imprese e aziende agricole, organizzazioni, gruppi e movimenti, istituti religiosi. Lavorare insieme, solo così potremo creare il futuro che vogliamo, un mondo più inclusivo, fraterno, pacifico e sostenibile. In un cammino che durerà per 7 anni, ci lasceremo guidare da 7 oggettivi del Laudato Si che ci indicheranno la direzione mentre perseguiamo la missione dell'ecologia integrale. La risposta al grido della terra, la risposta al grido dei poveri, l'economia ecologica, l'adozione di uno stile di vita semplice, l'educazione ecologica, la spiritualità ecologica e l'impegno comunitario. C'è speranza. Tutti possiamo collaborare, ognuno con la propria cultura ed esperienza, ciascuno con le proprie iniziative e capacità, perché la nostra madre terra ritorni alla sua originale bellezza e la creazione torni a risplendere secondo il progetto di Dio. Dio benedica ognuno di voi e benedica la nostra missione di ricostruire la nostra casa comune. Grazie.
Any questions or comments after viewing the Pope speaking his message to us and all those amazing images that go with it? Anyone?
How many of you feel like your understanding was heightened a little bit by either listening to the Pope or reading it? You could show it by raise of hands, or, you know, and if you, down here would be, you got a little bit, or up here. Yeah, if you got some sort of, you know, because it does, he just can't help but impact what you're thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess another question we'd ask you to kind of think about is, what kind of a world do we want to leave our children and our young people? And going along with that is, what do we need to do? What do each one of us need to do? What can we do to leave a healthier planet? and to repair the damage and stop continuing to damage. Once again, those journals are in the gathering space.
Okay.
That I think we do is recycle. I mean, it's probably a small thing.
Yeah, and I think like you're saying, each of us are taking steps, and just like St. Mary's, a little step, a bigger step, a bigger step, and I think it's that understanding that just keeps making us want to do more. None of us want to leave a desert for our children. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to just show you a little bit what's happening to our atmosphere, and then we'll just take a quick look at the actual website that you saw up there, and you can see how to join the Laudato Si action plan if you decide to. But it's that whole idea of committing to something. So what I wanted to do is the atmosphere. And I was on the NASA or climatenasa.gov website. And if you remember when you looked up there, how many of you saw that blanket of atmosphere around the world? Just very translucent and delicate. And Scott Kelly, when he saw that from space, talked about how beautiful it looked, but how fragile. And that atmosphere is what protects us from the sun and keeps us safe. Now, over 20,000 years before today, we have this atmosphere at this layer here. And it stayed pretty consistent. So animals were able to adapt if there was some change. Plants could adapt. And then humanity discovered the industrial age. And we began to spew coal, and we've mined fossil fuels and everything. So from the 1850s to 2022, we didn't quite double the amount of the carbon particles that were in the air, but we went from about 250 in 150 or 60 years to about 419 parts per million. And you see how that would hold in a little bit more heat and a little bit more moisture and things. And so the carbon that we put in the air stays there, not for a day, not for a year, but up to 100 or 200 years. And so over the last 100 years, the global temperature has risen 1 degree centigrade. And if you were like me, I thought, what's 1 degree centigrade? I can stand that. But what we see, how many of you can see the catastrophes that are taking place now? The fires, the horrific hurricanes, tornadoes, the stream, what were the ones, atmospheric rivers, and things like that. So this is now. And then by 2050, our governments say we should keep it at 1.5 degrees centigrade. Can you imagine the world now if we don't make much of a reduction, but it's going to be thicker? We're getting more particles in our, not particles, but carbon in our atmosphere, methane, nitrous oxide, and it's going to hold the air in. And then if we decide, this is a pretty good, darn good life. I don't really want to change. So we keep adding to the layers of our atmosphere. So what this did for me is it helped me see how we are continually making our blanket thicker and thicker. And I think one of the hardest things is you can't see it. It's not a pollutant you can see. It's up there, and it just keeps going and going. 51 billion tons of greenhouse gases humanity puts in the air each year. And so as we step into that, Pope Francis and the Catholic Church has put together this beautiful action platform. And what I'd like you to do is, if you would, there's the second sheet that has the seven aims of the action platform. So, how will this help me to journey to a more sustainable life? It is a 7-year journey of transformation that starts with that single step. It is an opportunity to reflect, act, and evaluate your walk towards a healthier and simpler, sustainable lifestyle which will impact the health of our earth. In this journey of 7 years, there are Laudato Si's 7 aims that are very closely intertwined. And each year, you will assess how you are implementing, acting on, and incorporating these 7 aims of Laudato Si in your life, from responding to the cry of the earth, to the cry of the poor, to ecological spirituality. So let's look through the 7 aims and the actions for each aim. And you can see the first one. Well, they're on this sheet right here. Mine's obviously very marked. But let's look at this first. So all you do is go to a Laudato Si action platform and decide if you want to do that, or just decide how you want to journey. It will ask you to look at the greenhouse gases you emit. We all have our Apple Watches or whatever little things so we can kind of track our health and exercise, and this helps us see what we are emitting into the atmosphere. And it'll have you look at areas like heating, electricity, travel, both air and ground, dietary habits, purchasing habits, and more. It does take some time to locate and figure out your consumption patterns, but it is important. Also, it will help you look at your water consumption, and then it'll weave in your actions in dealing with Laudato Si. And if you just again look at the action, or the sheet on the action platform, you see all of them here: the response to the cry of the earth, the response to the cry of the poor, the ecological economics, the adoption of a simple way of life, ecological education, ecological spirituality, community engagement, and participatory action. So it embraces a lot. And then it takes 3 different things if you want to be part of it. You do an annual self-assessment, so each year you'll take a look, did I make some changes? Then once you put in all of your information, they'll send back what your carbon footprint is, and then they total everybody's that is going there, and the hope is we'll see a drop. And then they will also ask you to do a reflection. What do you want to change? And then finally set up some target outcomes. So it's a powerful experience. It takes a little time, but I think it's worth the effort. And they have tons and tons of resources on this site. And so the time is closing a little bit. And at the bottom of this page, there's the Hope Jaren in the book, The Story of More, kind of talks about having hope requires courage. It is precisely because no single solution will save us that everything we do matters. Every meal we eat, every mile we travel, and every dollar we spend presents us with a choice between using more energy than we did the last time. You have power. How will you use it? Out before us stretches a new century, and its story is still unwritten. And maybe just glance down at ways you can do things, and maybe make a commitment either now or talk with your spouse or a friend about what you want to do later. And then I would like to end it with, there was a beautiful prayer of the faithful on Ash Wednesday, so simple. And when we heard this, how could we not think of the sorrow and things that are happening in Russia and Ukraine? And I'm sure you all, the prayer was here this morning. Peace, 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 and more peace. So maybe just to hold all the people in your hearts. And now in our world today, instead of more, 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 and more, let us change course in our relationship to our earth. Care, 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 and care more. I think that's it.
Oh, Sandy and Phyllis, thank you so much for your wisdom and the time that you put into this and giving us so much information and so much to think about. So thank you so very much. Next week, we have Katie Korbachevsky, our youth minister, who will be speaking on the life and dignity of the human person. So I hope you're able to join us for that. And one last thing, did you want to share about these books?
So, our Care for Creation ministry, we have some of the Laudato Si, the actual encyclical here, and these are here for you to take if you would like one. And also know you can download it as a PDF on your action plan. Then also in your packet is the Laudato Si Lent, and Barb Keegan painstakingly went through we had a 2017 form of it, so it was updated to today, and it was put together by the Sisters of Charity. And it's a beautiful reflections day by day for things to do in Lent. And then
I want to just add to that. If you look at the day for Ash Wednesday, it was, remember you are stardust. So not all of this is horrible and awful. There's a really wonderful part. And of course, a wonderful part that comes with dying to ourselves. As we know, in Lent comes the resurrection.
And then there's also for the grandparents or people who have kids in their lives, or if you just want one in your house. They're wonderful little books about looking after our planet with wonderful actions you can take as an adult or as a child. And what they do is they just help you see things that you can do. So those are available for you, and we'd love to have you take one, okay? And a special thanks for Don and Andy, wherever you are. So they came up with how to do the videos up here and put everything together.
And also this was recorded, so if you want to let people know, it will be on our website. So thank you, everyone. God bless your day.